Hello, Brandon. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, I guess you've been busy with these phone calls and interviews.
Yeah, here and there.
But thanks for spending the time today. Thanks for spending the time to have a chat. It's great to speak to you.
That's my pleasure. Thank you too.
So yeah, I just wanted to obviously to have a catch up, and yes, it's quite an exciting time for you because you've had your time with a band over these recent albums, and now you're having this little strike out on your own, a little adventure, and so it's a bit of a big change for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's one of those things that, for me, I never really wanted anything beyond what Incubus offered, just because it presented so much energetically and creatively for so long, and it definitely still has many of those things in it that I'm still really excited about. But there came a point when, as a band and as a group of friends, that have known each other our whole lives and have been in a band for quite literally most of our lives, we needed to, step away from that in order to be able to make sense of it. And I think probably also, like, on a personal level, establish who we were when we weren't in this band together. And it didn't mean we didn't want to be in a band anymore. I think we just needed a little bit of perspective on things. So, we collectively decided that it would be healthy and a good idea to, like, date other people, so to speak.
Yeah.
In the course of this open relationship, I've met a couple of other really, really hot chicks, and they're really cool and they're a lot of fun, but it also, like, puts things, very deeply into perspective, and it reminds me also how much I love and miss Incubus, and I'm excited to continue to make music with Incubus. But in the immediate, these opportunities that have been popping up are really exciting and unexpected. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, I can see what you mean by having the step away to give you a different perspective, because it was quite a long time you were with them, and so you're used to your relationship with everybody else in the band, and so to have interactions with other musicians and get your head into a different place for a while does give you that different perspective.
Yeah, and it's one that I think becomes increasingly important as I'll just say me, as I get older, and do this longer and longer, it becomes almost imperative to exercise new avenues and allow my brain and my creative spirit to kind of wander a little bit. I do think that we were getting dangerously close in Incubus to getting to a place of kind of unintentional complacency, where it was just like things were going so well for so long, and it almost got to the point where it was like, well, all we gotta do is, like, roll out of bed, and that's not a good place to be. That's not a good place to be creatively. I think it's really important for, I think, everybody, not just in creative fields, but people in any walk of life at any age, to allow for a challenge to come in every once in a while and say yes to some unusual things. So our brains and our, once again, creative spirits exercise a little bit. So that's really what this feels like. And it's another reason I'm so excited about it, is because I have no idea what I'm about to walk into with Jesus Christ Superstar. And I'm learning the part. I'm learning how to sing this part, which is so much more sort of acty than ever.
And also, well, you're used to being on stage anyway, but it's a different kettle of fish, because it's quite a set thing, but it's a completely different format.
Yeah, and there's also, I have some pretty big shoes to fill with the people that have played this part historically, and the last guy that did it, Tim Minchin, I've been watching, the most recent performance on the DVD of Jesus Christ Superstar, and he just, like, killed it. It was so good and so convincing, and I just actually met him this week and sat down with him, and he was giving me pointers, and we were exchanging, war stories about being on the road and stuff, and it actually made me more excited to approach this. So I'm kind of over the moon about it at the moment, because I grew up listening to Andrew Lloyd Webber through my parents, and my parents were in theater.
Okay.
But, I never really had too much of a sort of theater ambition in me. but I loved the music. I always loved the music of Jesus Christ Superstar and Phantom of the Opera and Cats and all these things. I was like a child listening to it in the car, and so it was actually really cool for me, like, to tell my parents about this, because they were both more excited about it than I was, actually.
Well, yeah, but I guess it's a good opportunity because, as you say, you've had such a long time in one field, and then if you're branching out to do other things, then what an opportunity to do something so different. But then at the same time, come back to a kind of full circle to something that you had some origins with when you were young, and connection with your parents as well. So it's like a kind of nurturing vibe in some level, but also, yeah, as I say, coming back to something.
Yeah, it definitely has a full circle vibration about it, and I like stuff like that. I like when there's sort of a weird cosmic loop that takes place.
Well, there's been so much of that at the moment in terms of everybody's learning experiences about, as I've spoken about on my show actually quite a few times over the past few weeks and months, because there's been so many different energies and steps that people have gone through and had to. And then also there's like these sort of collective waves that you find that lots of different people have the same experiences, or at least their own learning experiences of the perspective about their own issues or their own journey that they've had to face and work through.
Yeah, I think that those things are always there for us. It's just a matter of if we're ready and or perceptive or receptive enough to recognize those opportunities as they pop up. And so, yeah, I'm thrilled to be able to step into one of those opportunities and recognize it as a sort of a full circle completion kind of a thing.
Yeah. How much of it was sort of planned, or is it just a case of getting all that you needed to with the band out of the way, and then you've had this space afterwards, and then you kind of saw what was available? I mean, you obviously your project with Sons of the Sea, was that planned, or is it just as I say, when you get into this space that you sort of saw what was available and you felt what you wanted to step into?
This was more, and Sons of the Sea as well, it was kind of a happy coincidence. When we decided to take a break, being on the road and making albums just for a time with Incubus, I didn't know what I was going to do, and I didn't care. I just knew that it would be wonderful to unpack and sort of settle in at home and kind of get to know my family again and surf. Yeah, and then I think I took about a week or 10 days where I didn't do anything, and then all of a sudden, like, all these song ideas start creeping in again, and at the same time, all these sort of visual works started to kind of spill out into my sketchbooks and onto canvases and stuff, and then so I started putting together what was my most recent book. Brendon O'Brien and I getting together in the studio, and we didn't know it was going to be called Sons of the Sea. We didn't know we were going to make a record. We both had a moment where he wasn't actively making a record, and neither was I, but we both had a very sort of strong drive to make music, and it was such a fun idea that we had made so much music together over the past 10 years in Incubus, but on a much different kind of, him as a exclusively producer kind of a thing, and me as the singer of the band and the lyricist. And so it was just, we both knew, we didn't know what it was going to be, but we both knew that we wanted to do it, and it would probably be pretty cool if we really put our heads in the right place. And so within about I think it was 4 or 5 months, we had more than an album's worth of material, and we started mixing it. And then he looked at me, he's like, we might want to name this now. It might be time to actually call it a band.
Yeah.
So that's when I came up with the Sons of the Sea thing, and then it was what do we do? Do we try and get a record deal, or do we what do we do now?
So it was just a kind of, each step came up as it came up, and you just sort of, you were in the present moment each time. You're just doing what you felt like doing, and then you just sort of had to confront things and work it out at that point. This
was the quintessential cross that bridge when you come to it project, and it's still that. I mean, there's still no record label attached to it. It's totally independent project, self-financed, and it's the same thing I've done with my art book adventures, including this newest one. It's just I I like to make things, and it's a lot more fun to make things as well when you don't have a sort of larger corporate entity sort of lording over you and asking you when it's going to be done. And people, it doesn't get as much of a reach, not by a long shot, just because you don't have the same resources as a major label does. But a lot of the joy remains intact. That's sort of the trade-off.
Has that been a big advantage? Did you find, as you mentioned, the kind of corporate entity looking over it, did that affect the creative process a little bit with having to, produce, product or music all the time?
Right. I never really thought that it did when we were in it, because that's the only way that I've ever, with Incubus, we would make albums and then we would turn in albums, and it started to over the last part, but I have to say, largely, we even though we were on, a major label for so long, I think almost 17 years, Incubus was signed to Epic Records, which is a Sony subsidiary. And there were moments when it got fuzzy, and there were moments when we had troubles with them, but largely, I think that we kind of got off easy. I've heard some horror stories over the years that far exceed any of our worst days with them. But even that being said, there's something about making music purely for the joy of making music that really you can't put a price on, and that's something that Sons of the Sea has really reminded me how much fun it can be. And so when we go back in, to make another Incubus record, I'm going to take that sentiment with me, and those feelings with me.
So it is completely refreshing, and you've been able to reconnect with your creative process, basically.
Yes, exactly. And that would be, to me, like the greatest crime or the saddest thing, is if you somehow became so, ultimately beholden to a larger corporate entity that it started to really kind of like bleed into your creative process, and you start to make music that you think is going to sell, and that's not. I don't consider that my job. I feel like it's my job to be as creatively honest as I know how to be, and to remain in that kind of almost like a unknowingly naive place when it comes to those things. So a long time ago, actually, I decided to let other people and other parts of the business worry about those kinds of things. When those things start to worry me, I like to almost like check out for a minute.
Yeah, no. Exactly. So it's great that you're able to connect with ways of expressing, as you say, with your art book. Is there a particular process you have behind that, or are there things that come to you, or is it what you're feeling with the things you're working through with emotions and stuff? And is it like a release, or like almost therapeutic in a way?
It can be. It can be very therapeutic, and I don't necessarily draw or write music like if I'm in a bad mood or I'm sad or something. I'm like, oh, I'm sad, I need to go draw. It's almost unintentionally cathartic. I just usually feel like a surge of some kind of inspiration, whether it be good or bad, and my outlet has always been pen to paper in some regard. And so there's a fortunate byproduct to that, and that's been, I get to sort of externalize a sort of complex internal process and understand things about myself that I probably otherwise would not have been able to. And then it's some weird sort of karmic twist of fate that people over the years seem to have enjoyed. In some way, like looking into that kind of internal process. So I can only count myself, lucky. I feel very, very lucky and very fortunate and very grateful at the same time to have the opportunity to do what I love to do. And then for some reason, people seem to enjoy looking at it after the fact or listening to it,
Well, that's often the case. If you were really honest about what you're expressing, the place that it comes from can very often resonate with lots of people and what they've experienced or going through, almost like a kind of harmonic. And then, so if people feel that, then it's quite natural that they're going to, tune into it and enjoy it, which is great that you're able to express like that.
Yeah, I feel like we're not so different human beings. I mean, we have different cultures and different colors and different traditions, but we're all working with a very finite, very sort of small number of collective archetypes. Everybody can relate to a pretty small number of human experiences, human emotions, and human stories. And so it's really about, I think, just connecting to those things and tapping into those things and sharing our experiences with each other. And not just me to them, too. I've been introduced to so much good art and good music through listeners of Incubus and through people that have, looked at my artwork or something, and then they share theirs with me. And it's a wonderful form of communication that is so unexpected, because it really does kind of like supersede language in so many ways. With words we can express a lot, but they're still only words. And so once we start working in symbols and in drawings and in these deep sort of upwellings from our unconscious, there's so much more that can be communicated, and in such beautiful ways too.
Yeah, for sure. And, similarities, and we can see our collective, as I say, similarities, or there's something that kind of unites us and that we each tap into, and through sharing, that really comes out. And also healing as well, just by sometimes expressing what we're going through. Sometimes people have a familiarity with it when they understand what it is, and then they can either sympathize with it or offer some sort of contribution to heal it. And or as you say, when you're sharing art, and it kind of resonates with other people, and they share theirs with you, and there's that kind of harmony again. And it's wonderful, as we kind of, I feel like as a species, we are moving towards this kind of oneness, and through art and music, it's always a great way to do that.
I 100% agree with you.
So when you said you were recording with Brendon, with Sons of the Sea, did you have in mind all the musicians that you met, or was that a case of just certain people came up and you knew you were going to work with Brendon anyway? So was that just a different experience working with different people?
It was largely. I'm a fan of Brendon O'Brien, and that I grew up with, that made me want to be in a band, and so I have this. He's a friend, and I feel really lucky to have him as a friend. But he's also kind of like a musical hero of mine at the same time. So for me, there was no other person that I was really interested in working with at this very moment. Because most people know him as a producer, which he's one of the best in the world. But I don't think as many people realize that he is as ridiculously talented as a musician as he is. And so all of the guitar playing, bass playing, and keyboards and pianos that you hear on the album, most of the piano, I should say, are Brendon. That's him just going crazy in the studio, and me, with him in the room, like nodding enthusiastically, yes, that does sound good. And then all of the singing and the lyrics, and we just put our heads together, and we just got really fun, weird stuff out of it, and we're still actually writing off and on. And when we're both about to get busy again, but when we have another moment, I don't know when that's going to be, but it's so much fun making music with him. So for me, he was the only person that I wanted to make music with, and really the only other person that plays on the album. There's a guy named Jamie that played piano on the track Avalanche, and then I played all the drums initially on the record. And we were actually already mixing the album, and the drums sounded really good, but then I started to get this almost like a little pang, like maybe we should hire a real drummer and the songs might sound better. And right as I started to have that realization, our friend Josh Fries poked his head in the studio, and he was working in a studio down the hall. And Brendon said to him, "Hey, what are you doing right now?" Like 2 or 3 days later, Josh had played all of the drum parts that I wrote, and they sounded like 300 times better than I could have ever executed. So it was a lot of sort of happy coincidences with this album.
It sounds like a part of that, process of as you've gone into this new space and a new little path. That sounds great. Was there a particular, feeling with the change in style? Was that something that you've always felt like, a kind of particular style that you wanted to express or step into? It
was not as much a conscious effort as far as like stylistically what the record was going to sound like. It was more like just we were in the moment, we were in the flow of things, and there were only a couple of moments when certain sounds on the guitar we thought were a little bit too like Incubus sounding, but that really, I think it happened twice in hundreds of moments. So there wasn't too much danger of what Brendon musically was recording was going to sound like what we do with Incubus, because, you know, Incubus is a thing. It's like what we make together as a collective has a very distinctive thing, and I think that for me as a writer, it brings out something in my voice and in the way that I write lyrics that is very much a thing. So you can hear, I think, through lines in the singing and in some of the stylistic elements, but largely the music that Brendon and I wrote together just brought something out in me that was more, I don't know, pop. That's really, for want of a better term, it's such a bad word in this day and age, you know. But I personally, I'm not afraid of the word anymore, because it only means what you infuse it with. So when I say pop, I'm referring to like the Beach Boys or the Beatles.
Yeah.
There were things that the riffs, the guitarists that Brendon was showing me, they were bringing out things in me that would not have come out otherwise. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and there's so much variety within pop as well. There's nothing particularly wrong with the expression, because it's popular music, and that can incorporate everything from Weezer all the way into kind of, you know, power pop and, you know, other sort of variations. So, you know, it's maybe it does encapsulate it quite well.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those words where it's almost like it could stand to be taken back in certain ways, you know.
Yeah.
There are certain things culturally so kind of like heavily connotated in one direction. I mean, even like the word God. I mean, it's become in so many circles like a bad word, and all of that really is. I mean, it's just that is perhaps the most heavily connotated word in language. It's the one that we fight over the most, but all it really is doing is, in a very small amount of space, trying to describe a process. You know.
Yeah.
And so, is it interesting and ironic, perhaps, that the other three-letter word is also one of the most heavily connotated, and pop and God.
Well, yeah, exactly. You get these little resonances. Yeah. So, do you have any idea of the next step, or is it just literally you're just enjoying each moment and you know, and being then aware of how you're feeling in each moment, and then you're tapping into that, and then you take the step that you feel like you want to do?
Yes, I'd say answer B. I'm in a unique moment in my life where I'm kind of out in the open. I have some wonderful people helping me with certain things. Like I said, I am not the most kind of like business-minded person, but I don't have a traditional manager at the moment. I don't have a record deal. I don't have a publishing deal. It's this really strange moment where I am in a kind of moment-to-moment thing, and what's so interesting is that the more in the moment that I stay, it seems like these wonderful opportunities, keep kind of rushing in, and I really think it's just about me being receptive to the moment and being able to appreciate each step that I take. So I spent most of my adult life in a very sort of planning, quote-unquote, era, and and to much fruition too. I can't badmouth it at all, but planning definitely leads to expectation, and expectation leads to stress, and stress.
Yeah, and unhappiness. Yeah, that's another thing I've talked about a lot recently, is like expectation and anything that where you're looking too far ahead. And I've been in that space a little bit recently of thinking about all the things that need to be done coming up, but then it takes you out of the present moment, and in the present moment, that's when all the contentment and more pieces. And so it sounds like, you know, you're in that place, and yeah, it's really lovely to hear. And you sound very relaxed and sound like you're enjoying every moment. So that's nice.
It's nice. Yes, I'm very thankful.
Well, speaking of thankful, I think that's about it for time-wise, but I'm just very glad I was able to speak to you and have these moments. And hearing you so well as well.
No, thank you. I appreciate your time as well, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and good luck with everything and the next stages, and it all sounds like it's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, man. Thank you.